Exciting news, the lawmakers are considering monthly stimulus checks, and these payments automatically deposited for millions of people. Democrats are pushing for new checks to be worth at least $300, and now the child tax credit, which was temporarily expanded through the American Rescue Plan, had the existing credit of $2,000 per dependent under age 17. It was increased to around $3,600 per dependent under 6 and $3,000 per child under 6 through 17. Half of the enhanced sum was made available through monthly payments starting last July, up to $300 per child under 6 and up to $250 per child under 18. Families could claim the remaining money when they filed their tax returns for the year, and Democrats had hoped to renew some more generous credits this year. But the key legislation they hope to pass through the Build Back Better bill has fallen apart, and Joe Manchin is the one to blame. He is opposed to renewing the payments without additional work requirements, and it's all on Joe Manchin now. Democrats and advocates are hoping to get one more go at renewing the enhanced child tax credit this year. Adam Rubin, a campaign director at an advocacy organization that promotes extending economic power to all Americans, told reporters, "I feel better about it than I have at any point in 2022. A number of signs are pointing to new momentum. President Biden called the enhanced child tax credit one of the most effective programs we've ever seen at a recent White House conference, and Joe Biden also said, "That's why my national strategy calls on Congress to expand the child credit permanently. We'll get it done more this time." And recently released census data shows that credit expansion has helped reduce child poverty by more than 40%. That prompted Democratic lawmakers like Michael Bennet of Colorado, Sherrod Brown of Ohio, and Cory Booker of New Jersey to call for extending the enhanced credit before the year ends. The post-election period, everybody, could be a key opportunity for revisiting the proposal. It's a more optimism time compared to last year, as lawmakers are at a year-end tax deal to revisit corporate tax cuts put in place in 2017. Advocates hope an enhanced child tax credit can be included in that package. And Brown said in a recent interview, "No more tax breaks for big corporations and the wealthy unless the child tax credit is with it." According to Elaine Mag, an expert at the Urban Bookings Tax Policy Center, there were the few key features behind the success of the 2021 credit, in addition to the higher credit amounts that monthly payments. And now, the credit was made fully refundable. That made it possible for low-income households to access the full credit. Plus, don't forget about this, everybody. Experts say that when lawmakers negotiate on new terms, an enhanced child tax credit may not be as generous as the 2021 crisis-era relief. Now, child poverty is poised to increase relative to last year. Economists have said that Congress had a real choice on whether or not to take action and stern some of the rise in poverty, and the work requirements may be a sticking point in the negotiations between the two parties. Over the past few months, Mitt Romney has pushed for a Republican-friendly version of the enhanced expanded child tax credit that he hopes could gain bipartisan support. His proposal would bring back the direct monthly payments that many parents used for 6 months last year to cover the cost of food, clothing, and childcare before Congress let the current tax credit expire. But Romney's form of extra monthly payments would add strict work requirements, to slash programs and aid vulnerable Americans, and make significant changes to the tax code. And according to sources that are familiar with the situation, Romney has largely worked with Republicans on his plan, so hopefully both parties can get it done, work together, and send out payments by the end of this year.
I'm very frustrated by the stalling of what we should have otherwise accomplished in the Senate. I believe that, and I've said this before in town halls, I believe that Senator Manchin and Senator Sanders, which again, my side of the team, right? I don't think that we should divide ourselves into like two camps or anything like that. But that is my side of the aisle. And I'm very disappointed in their actions to block the Build Back Better Act, which is what would have gotten us $40 billion for NYCHA so that people aren't simply cold and access to hot water. I'm not pleased with the lack of investment in high-speed rail that we so desperately needed in this country. There are a lot of things that I think we would have pushed more aggressively on. I'm very disappointed with the lack of progress for immigrants. I think there's something to be said, even though the joke, there's something to be said about the fact that yes, we want people to be documented here, and the fact that people aren't documented is evidence of our failures to make progress. And so there are a lot of areas where I think we've fallen short, for sure. Also, I think there are a lot of areas where we had leaps forward. Like it's kind of like we're able to hold two truths at the same time. We've made so much progress, and it still isn't enough. And so I try to appreciate the massive wins that we've had here. 9 million climate jobs, 40% reduction in carbon emission. That buys us time on climate. It buys us time on a lot of these things. But there's a lot. I mean, every day I wake up and we don't have guaranteed health care in the United States. America is a disappointment. I'm not gonna lie. It is. Every day we wake up and continue to give subsidies to the fossil fuel industry is a disappointment. Every day we wake up, there is a truly just, viable path to citizenship for people who come to our shores, just like our ancestors did. Unless you come from certain backgrounds, is a disappointment. Every day that we don't raise the minimum wage, we're so past beyond $15 right now, and that fight started 10 years ago. I don't even want 15. I want 23. Okay. So every day we wake up, I'm annoyed, more than annoyed, but I'm trying to keep PC here. But at the same time, I think one of our biggest enemies is not actually our opposition, or not who TV tells us our enemies are politically or whatever. I think our enemy is cynicism. And when we don't take stock of the huge leaps and bounds that we have made.
Well, I know our future is bright when I look at these young leaders. Governor Gavin Newsom, thank you for that introduction. It is, of course, so good to be back in my home state of California. And to everyone here, on behalf of our administration, it is my honor to officially welcome you to the 9th Summit of the Americas.
Finally, there is a big update on the Build Back Better package. President Biden is meeting with Senate Democrat Manchin to gain his support on the next spending bill. Chuck Schumer is also making a relief package his top priority. Democrats and Republicans are competing for Joe Manchin's attention when it comes to what elements of President Biden's agenda are still in play ahead of the midterm elections, knowing full well that Washington will soon move into full campaign mode. And while Schumer is attempting to get Manchin on board with climate change and lowering prescription price proposals, GOP lawmakers are trying to divert Manchin's attention toward bipartisan negotiations on energy legislation. Schumer is privately trying to negotiate with Manchin on a budget bill that addresses climate change and lowers prescription prices. A West Virginia-based Democrat strategist told reporters that if Manchin gets something done within the parameters as he's discussed it, it's a possible yes from both parties. Now, Mike Lux, a Democrat strategist, said when it comes to the GOP side of things, Republicans are trying to run out the clock by pulling Manchin into energy negotiations and away from spending time on elements of Biden's Build Back Better agenda. So a group of 26 House Democrats piled more pressure on Manchin and Schumer to strike a deal by penning a letter last month warning that constituents will see a spike in health insurance premiums unless Congress extends premium tax credit enhancements. Mike Lux said it's critical to pass a budget reconciliation package to get a few more of Biden's domestic priorities enacted, especially legislation to extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies that are due to expire. A group of 26 House Democrats piled more pressure on Manchin and Schumer to strike a deal by writing a letter last month warning that constituents will see a spike in health insurance premiums unless Congress extends premium tax credit enhancements. Schumer met with Manchin at least twice in his office before Memorial Day, and the Democratic leader said he's not going to give up locking down what Manchin's vote is. And Manchin has given Democrats hope by saying that at a minimum, Congress should be able to pass prescription reform. Speaking at an event in West Virginia, Manchin and Democrats must pass legislation to lower prescription prices before the midterm elections. Democratic strategists say getting just a few pieces of Biden's agenda passed would get a major boost to vulnerable Democratic senators and Republicans and representatives that are in the midterm elections. Now, President Biden just announced his administration had secured 33 million bottles of safe infant formula. It is an announcement from Twitter The president shared that over 127 million bottles of safe infant formula are heading to U.S. shelves as soon as possible. The announcement comes amid a baby formula shortage stemming from a Michigan plant closing over contamination concerns. The Biden administration has taken over other actions in response to the shortage, including the Defense Production Act, creating a consent decree with the FDA to reopen a nutrition facility, and issuing FDA guidance to import formula that is not being produced in the United States. On Thursday, the White House launched a new website that tracks the actions the administration is taking to get more baby formula to shelves. The administration had previously launched Operation Fly Formula Mission to airlift formula from Europe and Australia to further combat the shortage. The administration announced a third and fourth wave of this mission, that will begin shipping baby formula next week. Federally chartered planes are bringing millions of bottles of the popular UK brand to America. Lawmakers have announced that the budget surplus is big enough to give Americans a $1,000 stimulus check. So as California mulls whether it's possible to send another round of stimulus checks out to deal with a massive projected budget surplus, one lawmaker made the case for more tax rebates. The Republican State Senator Brian Jones used grains of rice to break down the projected budget surplus, which is estimated at $45 billion. According to the state senator, the amount is not enough to send every Californian a tax rebate of $1,100 or $4,500.
As many of you may know, I am a proud daughter of California. I represented this state as Attorney General and as a United States Senator, and I am proud to call Los Angeles my home. As Vice President, I am pleased to acknowledge, as the Governor mentioned, California is a place where ambitions and dreams become reality. And so we all gather in Los Angeles this week for the Summit of the Americas with big ambitions. Ambitions that began 28 years ago in Miami at the first ever Summit of the Americas, when our nations together set the Western Hemisphere on a new path, a path to grow our economies and improve the lives of our people. And together, we have made progress on this path. A path that I believe is critically important for so many of us, and I will speak important for the American people, because the Western Hemisphere directly affects the security and prosperity of the United States. And so, this week, we gather once more to build a more prosperous and inclusive future. I look out at this room, and I see representatives of so many different countries and communities. We are joined, of course, by heads of state, and we are joined by youth leaders. We are joined by CEOs, and we are joined by labor organizers, women entrepreneurs, activists, and advocates. So here's how I see it.
Stocks are heading south again here into the close. We're still at the worst levels of the session. We're down now more than 1% though on the S&P. Scott Wren joins us, Wells Fargo Investment Institute Senior Global Market Strategist. Scott, what do you tell investors and clients to do on a day like today? Are you a buyer?
Well, I tell you, Sarah, you have to have an outlook that's longer than 3 or 6 months if you're going to be a buyer in stocks here. Really, since the beginning of March, we've been reducing risk in portfolios, particularly for people who have a very short-term view, or they have a cash liquidity need over the short term. But if your view is out, 24 plus months, 12, 24, 36 plus months on bad days, but particularly bad weeks, and we're obviously well off the lows here. You want to try to take advantage of that, but I think you can be patient because there's likely more downside before this is all over, before we work our way higher.
So how should you be positioned now? What sort of protection should you have?
Well, let me tell you what we've been doing. I mean, we've really reduced the cyclicality. So we backed off of financials, we backed off of industrials, consumer discretionary. We've upgraded healthcare and staples and utilities. We've taken money out of equities, which we had leaned hard toward for 18 or 20 months, and we put that